I have a few problems with my chainsaw, but the latest and the most critical one is that it is starting to cut crooked. And I'm not talking about just a slight angle, that could even be me just not lining it up correctly, but more of a curve, actually. Yeah, so see that? So, yeah, I'll start the saw in perpendicular to the log, and it'll just kind of keep moving to the right, moving to the right, moving to the right. And then this one here, that was darn near 45 degrees before I got all the way through to the other side. And if I force it to go straight by like just twisting the saw clockwise a little bit, all that does is just bind up the chain. It doesn't want to, it just hangs up. And so you kind of just have to let the chain follow its own path and let it do its thing until it gets all the way through. So I'm trying to diagnose this crooked cutting, crooked cutting of my saw here, and this one cuts crooked. I got this one too. This is an electric one that also doesn't cut straight. And one of the things I did was, first thing I did was I took the bar and flipped it upside down. Just wanted to see if maybe it was, a wear issue, but it seemed like it was pretty much cutting just as crooked as it did the other way. I checked the top surface of the blade too to be sure that it wasn't, wearing one side to the other, and that seems fine. And also, I even got a brand new bar, brand new chain. I put that on. The first couple of cuts were fine, or basically it was fine until I sharpened it again, and then it seemed to start going crooked. So I kind of come to the, well, not the conclusion. My next my next possibility might be is that I'm just sharpening it inconsistently from one side to the other. And when I sharpen it by hand, using this guide and this file, I'm always using the same hand. I'm always using the left hand. When I'm sharpening this direction, I've got this kind of an angle going. And of course, when I sharpen the other way, I'm this way. And it's entirely possible that just, even though it feels like I'm, doing it the same, maybe there's something just different from when I do the left side and the right side. And when I do go to sharpen it, it feels different. I'll couple of tanks through a chain, and I come back and just do a quick sharpen. And one side will feel smoother than the other for sure. Just almost seems like it's already sharpened, and the other side just feels like it's got, all sorts of burrs and stuff on it. So I'm thinking possibly that yeah, I'm just inconsistent when I go from one side to the other. So what I think I'm going to try is I got an electric chainsaw, wrong way, electric chainsaw sharpener. $24 with a coupon from the Harbor Freight. Figure for that price, might as well give it a whirl. So this should be real consistent, left side and right side when I use the machine. So I'm going to use that, sharpen up my chain, and then try it again and see if it's a little straighter, or perfectly straight would be ideal, obviously. It's funny, in the instructions they state to stop the saw or stop the grinder every time that you move the chain. Yeah, right. Like, like anyone's gonna do that and take a 5 or 10 minute job and turn it into a 30-minute job doing that. So okay, so now I'm gonna do the other sides and set this to 30 on the other. And I can tell doing those the first round, some of them sometimes it took off more material, and other times it barely took off anything. So I obviously, by hand sharpening, they weren't uniform, even from on one side of the chain. Some of these teeth I seem to have taken quite a bit of material off. I mean, when I say quite a bit, I mean like maybe half the width of that grinding wheel there, but because of that, I'm going to check. That's something this machine doesn't do, though, is check the height of my, I don't know, you call those rakers. I know some people call them depth gauges, but I'm not crazy about that term, actually, but, so, let me see, how do I, yeah, I'll check a couple at random and see what we got here. Yeah, I think those are pretty much right flush, so no reason yet to grind on those. Are pretty much right where they're supposed to be, so I guess I didn't grind off as much as I thought of that chain. Doing some test cuts post-sharpening here, and it looks like afterwards there is still somewhat of a curve on this cut. It's a lot better than it was before, but it's still there. Because it's better, a lot better actually, I think I'm on the right track, but I'm thinking possibly I just didn't take off enough material with the machine first time around and didn't quite get rid of all of the inconsistencies I added with my poor hand sharpening. So I put it back in the machine, took off a little bit more material from each tooth, and then gave it another rip. I noticed right away, even after the initial sharpening, that the saw cuts easier, and it's not any sharper than it was when I was doing it with a file, but it doesn't want to bind like it did before. And of course that's because it's cutting straight now, as shown here. So it would appear that my hand sharpening was suspect. The disadvantage to the machine, however, is that you have to take the chain off the saw every time. So I still sharpen by hand, but after 3 or 4 sharpenings and it starts to cut crooked again, then I'll put it back on the machine and essentially recondition the chain. Maybe one of these days my hand sharpening will get good enough to where I won't have to do that anymore. I'm glad this worked out, and for not a lot of money too, because I was really starting to hate my saw, but now, not so much.